Today we're going to start Chapter 6, and Chapter 6 focuses on manipulating strings. So we'll learn a lot about what to do with strings and what we can do with strings in this chapter. I don't want you to get overwhelmed with trying to memorize everything. If you just try to understand what we're talking about, you'll be able to Google or look back in the slides if you want to figure out how to do something. So the first thing is, what's a string? So a string is basically just a bunch of characters. It is a sequence of characters. Now, does the sequence have an order? Yes, it has an order, because here, if I create the string with the H at the beginning, I want it to remain with H at the beginning. So it's a sequence, it's an ordered sequence, it has an order. You can use single quotes, you can use double quotes, or you can use triple single quotes. So basically, when we were using the print function at the beginning, and we were learning how to use the print function, what we were giving it were just strings. So these are all strings that we could give, that we were creating. Okay, so if I want to create a string, for example, my name, I could put it in single quotes, or I could have done it and put it in double quotes, or I could have put it in triple single quotes. Okay, so these are all ways that we can create strings. Now, what is it that I can do with strings? Well, one of the things I can actually do with strings is that I can add them. Now, I can add strings to strings. So if I say name, and maybe let's make this one last name. So here, I'll put my last name. I can actually create a combination that says full name. And so full name is my name plus a space plus my last name. And now if I try printing full name, I will get the full name printed out. Okay, so you can concatenate strings. This is called concatenation. So adding is called concatenation. We're concatenating strings together. So that's one thing I can do with strings. Now, we learned before that we cannot add strings and numbers. So before, if I had, a number, let's say age equal to 10, and I wanted to add let's say full name equal to full name plus age, if I try doing that, that's not going to work. I'm going to get an exception. Why? Because I'm trying to add a string and an int. So we learned before that we cannot add strings with ints through the error messages that we were getting. If I had a string that contained a number, so let's say here I have count equal to 7. 7 here is a string, so this is a string because it is inside quotes. Now, if I tried printing here, count plus age, it's not going to work. Why? Because I'm trying to add a string and a number. It's not going to work. So what we learned to do was to come to the number and say I'm going to, the string, and say I'm going to convert you to a number. So if I try converting to the count to an int first, so it becomes a 7, then I'm able to do the addition. So all that stuff we've learned before. Now, if I have a string and I want to look inside of the string, I want to, manipulate the string, or I want to do some statistics on the string, I can look at the string character by character. And imagine, the string is basically a series of characters. This series of characters are numbered. So the first character we say is at location 0 or at index 0. The second character is at location 1. So if I have a string, my name, and I ask you, what's the first letter in my name? You can say I. If I ask you what is the second letter in my name, you would say B. The same way when we are doing string manipulation, I can access a single character in the string by location. So I can say, for example, first character. And to get the first character, what I do is I put the name of my string, and then in square brackets, I put the location. The location starts with 0. So if I want the first character, I'm going to put a 0 in there. If I want the second character, then I'll put a 1. and so on. So here I'll say name of 1. So if I run this code, I got the first letter in my name, and I got the second letter in my name. So that's the first thing we want to be able to do with strings, is that we want to be able to access them by location, every single character by location. What happens if I try to access a location that doesn't exist? So if I try here and I come and I say print me, instead of 1, I just say 10, for example. Well, my name only has 6 characters. It doesn't have 10 characters. So this is going to throw an exception. What does the exception say? It says string index out of range. You gave me an index, but this index is outside the range of this name. Now, what is the last letter in my name? Sorry, the last character. Well, my name is how many letters? It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the last character is not going to be at index 6. It's going to be at index 5. So it's always 1 less than how long the character is. And so that's where I get the M. Now, if I wanted to know how many characters my string had, there is a function called len. And len, what you do is you give it a string and it tells you how many characters. So here, if I didn't know how long my string was, I could say, well, I'm going to go and get the length of name. This is going to give me 6. Okay, so if I run it, it's going to break the code because I'm trying to access location 6, which is not possible. But if I say here, the length minus 1, so here I'm passing in, let me just put some extra spaces so you see what I'm doing. So I'm going to name, and I'm saying I want you to get me the location at the length of name minus 1. So the length of name gives me the 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. And so name of 5 is going to give me the last character. So here I really don't have to know what the string is. Any string they give me, I'll just get the length minus 1 to figure out the last character. Now, what if, let's say I want to print the characters each on a separate line. Let's think. I want to print the characters of my name, each one on a separate line. Okay, so that means I want to print, basically I want to print name of 0, and then I want to print name of 1, then I want to print name of 2, name of 3, all the way up to what? What's the last location that I want to print? Well, I need to know how many characters there are. So I need to go to get the length of name and then say minus 1, right? So I need to go to name and print the length minus 1, that index, that location. Now this is code that's repeating. I'm doing something, and whatever, the only thing that's changing between these different statements is the number I'm passing into name, the index. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until I hit the length minus 1. So how can I do that? Can I use the while loop to do that? Let's see how we can do that. So let's ask ourselves, what is the first I that I want to pass here? What is the first index that I want to pass? Well, it's 0. So let's start with index equal to 0. I want to go until I hit what index? So I want to go until I reach the length of name, right? Minus 1. Here, instead of saying less than or equal to the length of name minus 1, which is the 5, I can just say less than the length of name. This is going to achieve the same thing because it's not going to count the 6. So it's going to go for index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And once index reaches 6, which is the length, there's no equal sign. So this while loop will end. Okay, what is it that I want to do with index? I want to print name of index. I want to print the character at that index. Okay, I'm done doing what I need to do with the while. How do I go to the next value? After I print name of index, what do I want to do to index, my control variable? I want to go to index plus 1. So the first index I want to print is at location 0. I want to go up to the length, but not including the length, so no equal. I want to print it, and then I'm done with that index. I'm going to go to the next one. So let's see if that will print my name on separate lines. Let's run it and see. And I get my name, every character on a separate line. So we can use a combination of things. We can use here accessing a character at a time, using the length function to grab how many characters are in a string. Here, this is code. Let's look at it together and see what it's doing. We're trying to write code that counts how many times the letter T, uppercase or lowercase, appears in a sentence. So we start our counter with 0. That's going to count how many variables, how many characters are T. We ask the user for a sentence, and then we're starting our while loop. That's going to start with index 0, the first character, and we're going to go until we hit the length of the string, no equal sign. What we do is we get a character. So we go to my string at that index 0 initially, and we say, what's the character there? So we just create a variable ch and set it equal to that character. If that character is an uppercase T or that character is a lowercase t, we add 1 to our count variable. And now our count is 1 more. I'm done doing what I want to do. Now I need to make sure I do my update. I have my initialization, my test, and now I'm doing my update, index +1. And at the end, I print out how many T's I found. So this is a sample code that you could do with the length method and the while loop. Now, instead of using a while loop, you could have also used a for loop. And the for, remember the syntax for is for some variable in, and the last argument here was a list. So if you think about how we did it before with for loops, we would say for, let's say I in, and if I have a list like 10, 17, 10 again, I can say print me I. And we said it can be a mix, like it can be a string and a word and various things. So here I'm printing the contents of my list. Well, what we're doing when we put a name here, a variable name here, what we're doing is that we are treating this name as if it's a list of characters. It's a sequence of characters. And in reality, it is. So name in reality is kind of stored as separate characters. So my I, my B, my T, and so on. Okay. So in reality, because we're treating it as a list, it's kind of like this is location 0, location 1, location 2, so on. Here, I can use it in a for loop. And so if I do that, I'm going to get the characters of my name all on separate letters. Now, which one is faster? Doing it with a while loop and having 4 lines of code to do it, or just 2 lines of code with a for loop? The for loop is simpler. You could do the while, but the for loop is simpler. And so I want you to memorize this for loop syntax. I want you to know that you can traverse any string using a for loop. And basically here, this I is really referring to a character. You can call it character, or you can call it any other variable name that you want. But you can use a for loop to traverse a string. And so here, if we look at this code, what it's doing the same thing that we did on the last slide, counting how many T's, but just using a for loop instead. So we have our count variable that counts how many variables we have, how many T's we have. We ask the user for a string, we read it in, and then we're traversing the string. For every character in my string, if that character is a T or a lowercase t, we're going to count it, and then we do our printing.